Starting off in the number 5 spot of the best budget ambidextrous gaming mice is the Cooler Master MM711, coming in at a price tag of $27.95. If at any point during the video you want to check out any of the 5 mice in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's talk about the MM711. Now, at that great price tag, you get a PixArt 3389 sensor, a 1000 Hz polling rate, up to 16,000 DPI, 400 IPS, and 50 Gs of acceleration. Now, the design here is absolutely awesome with this really unique RGB light on the palm area, and then an illuminated scroll wheel. And while the build quality does feel way more expensive than the price reflects, if you do press on this from some sides or the bottom, there are some creaks. However, for the most part, while gaming, this feels great, and honestly, way more expensive than it is. Now, as for color options, there's actually quite a lot, and that's really cool. So you have black, white glossy, wilderness green, and blue metallic. Now, as for the skates, these are 100% PTFE. The Cooler Master has 1 skate on the top and then 2 smaller skates on the bottom corners. Now, this design does cause some drag, but overall it's very, very manageable. As for the cable, it's an ultralight cable. All of the mice on the list do have that ultralight cable design, and all of them are pretty much the same. They feel like wireless mice and they don't pull. We are also going to be doing a wireless mice version of this video, but well, that will come in the future, so subscribe below if you want to see that. Now, as for the switches here, these are Omron switches and they feel really good. But of all of them on the list, these are my least favorite. However, for the price, I still really like these. They have a nice click to them, a nice sound, and they're overall nice to game, especially like FPS games, but the clicks on these mice that are on the list get really quite exceptional. So this is my least favorite on the list, but that should not be a deal breaker as they are still good. Now, the Cooler Master scroll wheel is actually very nice. Clear tactile bumps, feels very precise. Really, there's no issues at all with this. Now, as far as weight, this comes in at 60 grams, which is a very light weight. Now, even with the weight, this manages to have heaps of RGB, both on the scroll wheel and that massive diffuse section under the cutouts, which just looks awesome. But with that, let's move on to the number 4 spot, which is the glorious Model O-, coming in at a price tag of $49.99. This has the PixArt 3360 sensor, a 1000 Hz polling rate, up to 12,000 DPI, 250 IPS, and 50 Gs of acceleration. Now, the Glorious is well put together, although my Model D, which I've been using for years at this point, did develop a creak after some time. So this definitely feels not quite as solid as some others on the list. However, this is by far the best looking mouse on the list. Absolutely stunning RGB on the left and right sides, which then illuminate inside the honeycomb grill on the palm area, which looks absolutely fantastic, as well as the mouse wheel also being illuminated in that RGB. Now, for colors, they have glossy black, glossy white, matte black, and matte white. Now, the skates here are, again, 100% PTFE. Now, the Glorious has 4 smaller skates on each corner, which honestly surprised me, as most of the time this design causes more drag, but these were actually pretty smooth with only a very small amount of drag when going from left to right. Also, because of the smaller total skate area, this is a little bit faster. And again, those differences are minimal, so this should not affect your buying decision, probably. So some of them that have larger skate areas will obviously have more drag, and I don't mean scratchiness, but just overall drag, just because there's more surface area, which will in turn make it a slower, more controlled mouse. But again, small differences. As for the cable, this is again an ultralight cable, feels great, no problems there. Now, the Glorious also uses Omron switches. They have a very nice crisp click, but they do have a little bit more travel after the click than the number 3, 2, and 1 spot on the list, so I do prefer all of the rest of the mice on the list for the clicks. Now, again, doesn't mean that this is bad, but the 3, 2, and 1 spot are just really good. Now, the Glorious's scroll wheel has tactile bumps. However, they're kind of vague and a little bit heavy for my taste, so it's overall just okay. It's usable, but it's not fantastic. But what is fantastic is that weight. This comes in at 58 grams for the matte and then 59 grams for the glossy variants. RGB is also great here, having RGB on the scroll wheel, palm area, and a nice diffuse strip on both the left and the right side. I talked about it. You can see it on B-roll. Looks absolutely stunning. Also, I will say, if you want the RGB to look look better. The white variants look better than the black variants because white obviously is going to reflect it better than black. So there it is. But yeah, with that, let's move on to the number 3 spot, which is the HyperX Pulsefire Haste, coming in at a price tag of $49.99. This uses the Pixar 3335 sensor, and I will say, if you do look up like the history of this sensor, you will see some like problematic stuff going on. But 95% of that is that companies did not implement it well, and well, HyperX, all of the companies like Razer, HyperX, Corsair, they all implemented the 3335 sensor very, very nicely, so there's no issues at all here, and it's a very good sensor in this mouse. This is a 1000 hertz pulling rate, 16,000 DPI, 450 IPS, and 40 Gs of acceleration. Now, as for build quality, well, it's very well built, and honestly, it's just a very good looking design. Now, this uses the hexagon cutouts, both on the palm area as well as the beginning of the left and right clicks, which I honestly think looks absolutely awesome. Like it just completes that look. And it has a little bit of RGB on that mouse wheel, which I will say is extremely bright. Definitely the brightest RGB on the entire list. However, it's just on that scroll wheel, so a little bit, but very, very bright. Overall, being a symmetrical ambi mouse, this is the most ergonomic feeling on the list, which I'll go over why and how. So basically, the left and right clicks dip down and your fingers fall into them. That makes it feel a little bit more like a ergonomic mouse, but it is still definitely a symmetrical ambidextrous mouse, as well, all of them are on the list. That's the point of this video. Now, while this is totally up to personal preference, this is my favorite feeling mouse on the list in terms of grip. And as far as texture, this also has a very slight rough grippy texture, which again is my favorite texture on the list. So as far as grip and just hand feel, this is my favorite. Now for color options, you get black, black on red, black on yellow, and white on pink. I really do like that they have some different kind of colorways. Yeah, looks nice, mixes it up a little bit. I like it. As for skates, these are 100% PTFE skates, and this is my least favorite part of the HyperX. There's 4 small skates, 1 in each corner, and because of their orientation, there is drag both on the vertical and horizontal planes. However, it is not unplayable or offensively bad, and would definitely not be a deal breaker for me personally, as I really, really like the HyperX for the money. But yeah, this definitely could be a mouse that you might want to put aftermarket skates on. It's good enough where I would buy this and then buy some aftermarket skates. Now for the cable, again, an ultralight cable. This is probably the least ultralight cable on the list, but it's still ultralight enough to feel like a wireless mouse, so no problems there. As for the switches, these are TTC Golden Micro switches, and it has a really nice feel. It feels solid and doesn't feel like there's a huge amount of travel after the click. It's also nice sounding as well, kind of a deeper tone. Not quite as good as the number 2 and number 1 spot, but pretty dang good. Now, the HyperX's scroll wheel is also my least favorite on the list. It has tactile bumps, but they're pretty vague, and it just doesn't feel precise overall. Now, even with the skates not being the best, the scroll wheel not being great, I can't get over how good the price is paired with the grip. Just the ergonomics of this mouse, of a symmetrical ambi mouse, it's just really, really good for the price. And that's why it comes in at the number 3 spot, because this is probably the mouse that I would personally buy, even with the other problems. It's just, it feels right in my hands. Really, that's the biggest thing with buying mice, is how it feels in hand. Now, as for the weight, this is great, coming in at 59 grams. Again, with the RGB, you'll only get that on this scroll wheel, but it's very bright and nicely diffused. As for extras in the box, you also do get some grip tape as well as extra skates. Even though the skates aren't great, you do get them, which is nice, but yeah. But with that, let's move on to the number 2 spot, which is the ENDGAME Gear XM1R, coming in at a price tag of $59.99. This uses the Pixar 3370 sensor. This goes up to a 1000 hertz pulling rate, 19,000 DPI, 400 IPS, and 50 Gs of acceleration. As for build quality, it's very, very basic, but honestly feels very, very similar to the number 1 spot, as far as there's no rattles, there's no creaks, and it feels like it's built like a tank without feeling heavy. And that's honestly pretty tough to do with these lightweight mouse, to make them feel like they're really substantial. Now, this has a matte finish. However, it's more matte than finish. What? But you get what I'm saying. It attracts fingerprints. And it does seem like after maybe a year of usage, you will get maybe that shiny effect on your left and right clicks. But I haven't really had it long enough to be certain about that, so, well, I don't really know. Now, as for color options, you have a choice between black, dark frost, dark reflex in a glassy variant, which is what that is, and then white. pretty awesome colorways. Endgame gear always does pretty cool jobs with being a little bit unique, and I definitely appreciate that. For the skates, these are 100% PTFE, and out of the box, the Endgame gear XM1R comes with 4 skates on each corner, and then a small skate around the sensor. Now, this causes a horrendous amount of drag that is, for me, well, completely unplayable. Now you might be asking, well, why is it in the number 2 spot? Well, in the box, they include replacements for those that are 1 large skate on the top and 1 large skate on the bottom, which definitely makes it a ton better. This still has some drag in some directions, but it's very, very manageable and heaps and loads better than how it comes in stock form. But again, doesn't cost you anything, takes you 2 seconds to switch them out. Definitely would do that for sure. But pretty insane how bad the skates were, like just in stock form. But again, don't have to pay for it. It comes in the box. Good job. For the cable, this is again an ultra light cable design. No problems, no tugging, no pulling. It feels like a wireless mouse through and through. Now for the switches here, you get KLGM 8.0 switches. Then you get TTC micro switches for the side buttons. The switches are also really, really light and have an extremely short throw, which is honestly so freaking nice. Now, the only one issue with this mouse, which for me wasn't really a deal breaker at all, but it could be for you depending on what type of player you are. Those switches are so light and they have basically no travel to click, which honestly, if you're playing FPS games, is the nicest thing ever. Really, really love these. However, if you do slam your mouse down hard, maybe after a liftoff, depending on how you play, it will click. This will accidentally click if you slam it down. So that is a thing. Now for me, I'm not insanely aggressive, but I do see some people that run like under 400 DPI and they slam their mouse around. This could definitely be a deal breaker for people like that. Now, as for the scroll wheel, it's really good here. Really nice tactile bumps, very, very precise. Really no complaints at all with the scroll wheel. It's definitely a top tier scroll wheel. Now, as for the weight, this one is a little bit heavier than some of the others on the list at 69 grams, but still very, very manageable and a really nice balanced weight for kind of a cross between fast gameplay, but also very, very good precision. But with that, let's move on to the number 1 spot, which is the BenQ ZOWIE S2C, coming in at a price tag of $69.99. This uses the PixArt 3360 sensor. This has a 1000 Hertz polling rate, up to 12,000 DPI, 250 IPS, and 50 Gs of acceleration. Now, for the build quality here, it is a very basic design, but it's also incredibly solid. And I mean, there's 0 creaks and rattles. I find it hard to believe that even after many years of use, this could ever have any creaks. It's really built that well. When you shake it, there's 0 sound or any feeling of movement inside the mouse. Overall, when gaming on this, it feels like a very, very well put together mouse. I know I'm like going on and on with that, but it really does feel really nice and solid. It has a matte plastic finish that is completely smooth with no texture. However, it still feels a little grippy, and I don't feel like I need grip tape, but obviously you could add it to this. Now, as for color options, you get black, and that is it. You're gonna be happy with black. That's what you're gonna do, okay? Now for the skates, these are PTFE. There's 1 large skate on the top, 1 large skate on the bottom, and then 1 small skate around the sensor. Now, because of their design, there's essentially 0 drag caused by the skates. However, this does add more surface area, so this does feel slightly slower than some of the others on the list that have a smaller total area of skate, if that makes sense at all. So this does feel very, very precise. And even with a lower DPI, this felt great for fast whips because the amount of control that you have, even with those fast movements, it was just really, really nice and really enjoyable to game on, especially FPS games. Those faster FPS games, great. For the cable, it's an ultralight cable, no issues here, no pulling, feels like a wireless mouse. You guys know what it is. The switches here use Hano switches, basically no travel till click. It feels so immediate. It's light, but it's not too light. It really just feels nice to click. It's basically the perfect click. Honestly, it really is that good. It's quite special and definitely my favorite part of this mouse for sure. These are some of my like top 5 favorite clicks of all time. Really good. Now the ZOWIE scroll wheel is by far the best feeling on the list. Not only that, but it's probably in my top 5 of like best scroll wheels of all time. It's that good. Really nice tactile bumps, not too heavy, not too light. Also perfectly spaced for precision. The only downside here to the scroll wheel is that it sounds pretty bad. Like it really does sound quite awful. It kind of reminds me of like one of those cheap old school like library mouses. Like when you scroll it, that's what it sounds like. It sounds awful. But feels great. For the weight, this comes in at 69 grams for the small, which is the one that I have, or 72 grams for the medium. And as for extras, you do get an extra set of skates, which is a nice little extra. But again, if you want to check out any of the 5 mice in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. That's ZOWIE, so impressive with the clicks, the scroll wheel, just everything about it overall is basically just perfect. However, for the price, the HyperX probably might be the one that I would get, as I really like how it feels in my hand. But again, that's all up to personal preference. This is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.